Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Real Estate Today. I'm Charlie Bengel.
And I'm Meaza. Grab a cup of coffee and let's make your real estate career better.
Happy Monday, Eyerusalem. What's in the news today?
Well, fierce competition ahead for home buyers. A shortage of homes for sale and record low interest rates are creating a competitive home shopping summer. Realtor.com notes in its weekly recovery report ending July 11. The housing market is getting closer to pre-pandemic levels. Realtor.com's index reached 98.5 this week, which is just 1.5 points below its pre-pandemic baseline. Today's market remains tipped in favor of sellers, as would be spring buyers are shopping well into what would normally be summer vacation season. Says Danielle Hale, Realtor.com's chief economist. Home buyers trying to take advantage of record low mortgage rates and make up for the lost time are finding limited and more expensive options. Although sellers are slowly acclimating to this unexpected surge in buyer interest, inventory is still lagging behind demand, which is driving quick time on market and listing price growth on par with this time last summer. The West continues to lead the recovery, now pushing ahead of its pre-pandemic benchmark. The Northeast also is above its previous baseline too. The South and Midwest continue to lag behind their pre-pandemic baselines and are showing some signs of losing momentum in the recovery. Realtor.com cautions. Overall, Realtor.com's recovery index is showing the greatest housing recovery in Seattle, Boston, Denver, Philadelphia, and New York. However, housing shortages continue. Over the last 3 weeks, combined new listings are down an average of 14% from a year ago. Also, median listings continue to increase at 7.9% over the last year, which is faster than the pre-pandemic pace, Realtor.com notes. In other news, despite the housing market continuing to heat up as economies reopen, the recession driven by the coronavirus pandemic has upended the plans for many first-time buyers eager to invest in a new home. A survey by Bankrate.com found that 22 million adults are put off buying a home as a direct result of the national crisis. Of those who delayed purchasing real estate, more than 3 in 5 potential buyers, 62%, postponed for 6 months or more, including 20% who have delayed house hunting indefinitely. The downturn is obviously delaying key financial decisions and actions on the part of a broad range of individuals, says Mark Hamrick, Bankrate.com senior economic analyst, noting that buying a house is one of the most expensive purchases most people make. He said that some would-be buyers may have been economically harmed from the downturn or have a higher degree of caution because of it. Our survey's finding that of the 9% of those who are delaying an economic-related decision of some kind fall into this group of delaying a home purchase, says Hamrick. I think that it's understandable, but at the same time, as we see mortgage interest rates at record low levels, it's obviously a certain segment of society that is striking while the interest rate iron is hot. There's a certain segment of the population that is compelled to buy a home because of the perceived and indeed real benefit of being able to take advantage of low financing costs. Many young adults are feeling the financial pressure of job losses. The survey found that younger adults are more likely than older ones to delay purchasing a home. Hamrick said, there are a variety of reasons we can attach to that, but I think that the number one is that we've seen from the economic data that younger workers have higher rates of unemployment, for example, than their older counterparts. Generation Z, ages 18 to 23, and millennials, ages 24 to 39, were twice as likely as their elders, ages 40 plus, to delay a major milestone. 52% of those ages 18 to 39 versus 26% of elders, including purchasing a home. 14% of those ages 18 to 39 versus 5% of elders. Nearly 1.5 million Americans filed for initial unemployment benefits in the week ending June 20th. Among those often adversely affected by the economic downturn are younger Americans, many of whom are just starting out their careers, says Hamrick. As a result of these setbacks, they'll spend years trying to make up lost income and career opportunity. He added, there's no doubt the downturn is exacerbating income inequality and wealth inequality. Those are obvious two different things, but they are related. And both of those are key in this case on restraining the ability to purchase a home. A big challenge for many would-be buyers is the low inventory of available homes, especially in markets where the competition is already fierce. Hamrick said that it is obviously key, but that wouldn't necessarily lead someone to decide not to purchase a home. unless they were just in a situation where they could not find the home for purchase that they indeed were looking for. And that could explain some of that, but I think that now the low inventory is regarded as a key restraint with respect to home sales, and that serves to some degree as a dampening impact on the broader economy at a time when growth is obviously severely constrained anyway. Some buyers are viewing listings from the comfort of their homes. Logic would dictate that there are some people that would just be somewhat skittish about venturing into a home that you don't know what type of precautions that either the homeowner or others have taken, said Hamrick. One cannot imagine there are a tremendous number of open houses these days. You could do a sufficient amount of shopping online and then narrow down your choices as opposed to the old days where you would go to 20 homes before you decide to buy one. The survey found that many would-be home buyers don't plan to rush back into the market. About 10% would say that they'll wait 6 months to a year. 31% say they plan to delay for a year or more. And 20% say their plans are on hold indefinitely. For many millennials, home ownership has become an American dream deferred. It's not only the destruction of wealth, but it's the delay or the destruction of dreams, explained Hamrick. And whether it's buying a home or even in some more far-reaching aspect, delaying marriage or delaying having children or less so, buying a car or seeking further education, there's a whole wide range of impacts that are quite dramatic than a downturn has on individuals. And not only is that heartbreaking, but it has broad implications for the economy. It is only a case of the virus causing an impact on lives and livelihoods, but it impacts our lives in other ways that don't relate to health. Obviously, the housing activity is key for the broader economy, and right now it may be one of the more positive impacts that is being seen. The housing market is performing better than other aspects of the economy. Charlie, what's going on with rates?
Thanks, Eyerusalem. 30-year fixed rates, 3 1/8. Jumbo is still lower than 3%. FHA 2 3/4, and VA went up 1/8 to 2.875. What's going on in the market today, Eyerusalem?
In the last week in Hampton Roads, we saw 774 new listings hit the market, 832 properties go pending, and 748 properties sold. In the last week in the Washington metro area, within 30 miles of the White House, we saw 1,976 new listings hit the market, 2,386 go pending, and 1,832 sold. Back over to Charlie with our special guest.
Thanks, Eyerusalem. I would like to welcome Coach Amy Lassen back to the show. Amy, always good to see you. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
So it seems, at least in my market, that Eyerusalem was talking about a lot of buyers on hold. They don't appear to be on hold in the Washington metropolitan and Virginia Beach markets. What about in your market?
No, not at all. That's a really interesting thing, and funny how we have opportunities to find tangents on these shows.
Yeah.
But I just want to encourage anyone to not get too obsessed with headlines. Sort of get away from the computer, get away from your phone, and get out there and do your work. It's amazing how much business there is in most of our markets. And here's the other thing I will tell you. What if you're in a market where there are fewer eager buyers, or things have shifted for the slightly less hysterical and a little bit more even keeled? That's okay. Does that mean your career is over? Early, long before I seriously had dreams of being an agent, I asked my own realtor, are there too many agents in the market? And she said, way too many. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, oh, no, don't get me wrong. She said, there's always room for someone who will do a great job, and I think
Right.
that's great. So Please don't be discouraged. No matter what, you've got to do your work.
Yeah, but I mean, I would say that if there are people that their dream is deferred because of fear or because of lack of knowledge,
Sure.
I think it's a great opportunity to try to find those people and to educate them, right? Because, I mean, a rate's going to be higher a year from now? Probably. We don't know. Probably, because they're so low now.
Sure.
And I would hate for people to be in a good place financially, yet they think housing prices are going to collapse. They think this is the next great recession, right? I think on the show last week or the week before, Eyerusalem was talking about half of homeowners think now is a bad time to sell. It's like, well, no, it's not. I wonder why you think that, right? So I'm not somebody that would argue that we should be obsessed with headlines and news, right? We should generally have it turned off. Yet there are certainly some nuggets from these shows that really make you think, if that's what people think, do I know people that think that way?
Sure,
and what can I do to help them think maybe the right way, or to educate them so they make the right decision for themselves? Listen, if you've been furloughed, laid off, or you're having, now's not the time to buy.
Sure.
But if you're like a federal government employee and you're in good shape, but you think that housing prices are going to go down in Washington, D.C. 20%, maybe you need to have a little bit of education, right? Because what's going to happen is we're seeing prices go up and interest rates are going to go up. We're not going to see these sub 3% interest rates long term. I think everybody would agree with that. So anyway, interesting
Charlie,
topic.
I think you're trying to get into the minds of all these agents you've been begging to call their own people. I think that's what you're doing here. Because the truth is, that headline may be some sort of an accumulation of a generation of people who have come to a place that's different than the boomers.
Yeah.
They're not in a hurry to have kids. They don't feel particularly stable. They are carrying a lot of school debt. There may be a lot of people who aren't in a position to buy, and that's something that someone thought was headline worthy. But the most important thing is that we talk to every single person we know and ask them what they need.
Right.
We are not here to force an agenda. We are here to help the people who need our help. So call your people.
Call your people. I like it. Today is going to be day 2 of listings.
Yes.
And we discussed last week going over, we have a really good checklist for listings that can be found on theallegianceway.com by clicking on either checklists or by clicking on the daily dose. Wherever your finger wants to click is where you'll find the checklist.
Yeah.
So where do you want to start? Do you want to have a little bit of an intro, Amy, as to the importance of having a process when it comes to listings? This is something that we've talked before about, but there may be some people watching us for the first time that haven't heard us talk about this topic.
Yep. So what we've been talking about prior to this is that you need to have all of the components of a professional listing process identified, and we've shared that with you. And it's way more than the presentation, because Friday and today we're talking about the listing presentation itself. So you're welcome to go back and watch our other shows and download our checklists, but there is way more to the listing process than the presentation itself, right? The pre-sort of assessment conversations, assessing the house in advance, the pre-listing communication that promotes your skill and your social proof. And then we get into the listing presentation. So Charlie, you tell me how much of reviewing the overall process you want us to do, because last Friday we talked about what is the good content, what is the essential content in the presentation itself, right? So today I thought we could talk about, and let's decide, it always bears dipping back, and it always bears a healthy conversation. Oh, see, all the elements there by subheading. So, but what I was thinking today is we've talked now about what is the entire listing process, beginning to end, before beginning, post to end. And we've talked about what do you need to say when you meet the consumer face-to-face or Zoom to Zoom. Today I was thinking we could say, okay, great. Now how are you going to get one of these? How are you going to improve, or how are you going to get the listing presentation you want, both in substance and skill? And try to tell me if you'd rather also just tell them exactly what we have been talking about these last couple weeks.
No, I think go ahead based on what you just said a minute ago. Okay,
cool. So we've told you what you need, and you're going, yeah, but I don't have that. I think that's true for most agents, right? We've told you need to do it this way. This is what you need to tell them. This is what you need to have. So how can you get the presentation you want, both in substance and in skill? Let's start with substance. Welcome to the crazy world of the internet, right? And what my father calls the embarrassment of riches. You have options. So don't complain for lack of resources. You might start with your brokerage. Most brokerages have some sort of a presentation as a baseline to get you started. Maybe what they have to provide you will function more as a pre-listing communication than a listing communication, but you want to check that out. That is probably there. Charlie, you and I know we coach people from a lot of different brokerage brands, and most of them have resources that they don't realize they have.
Right, absolutely.
And do you want to interject here for RE/MAX Allegiance agents?
So, I mean, I think we have a great pre-listing presentation that ideally is dropped off or sent via priority mail to the seller ahead of time. It can also be emailed. So theallegianceway.com, click on Get More Sellers, click on Listing Presentation. And by the way, if you're not with RE/MAX Allegiance and you're watching this show, you can still download that and, you know, rip off, duplicate, use however you see fit, because that's how I came up with mine, right? I looked at 3 or 4 of my favorite listing presentations and carved them all up, literally cut and paste, like literally, and then took photos of it, sent it to the marketing team, and then they were able to come up with this. So I think ours is pretty good, but everybody wants to tweak it, right? So feel free to tweak, but I would say do not get caught in another project that is 90% done. Do not get caught in another project that, oh, I just need to do this and that, or it'll be ready. So if you're at 0, if you have no listing presentation and you wing it and you can rip off and duplicate somebody else's and get to 90%, please print that and please start using that. It doesn't mean that it's set in stone. It doesn't mean that you can't update it later, right? But beginning to use something, I think, is a win if you're not using anything right now.
I love that advice. Oh my goodness. So, okay, tip of the day, people. I had a friend who said to me once, I always tell buyers, you will get 85% of what you want in your house. And I said, really? She said, yeah, I tell them that right up front. You'll get 85% of what you want. And of course, it's a made up number. Pretty much all stats are made up, right? But I mean, it's not such a disingenuous thing to say. Like, she was trying to help them. You know, if they found pretty much the best house in the market that suited their needs, but they get all hung up on, yeah, but the front door is the wrong color.
Yep. Yeah.
So I love this, Charlie. If you're 90% there, quit overthinking it and start using it, because we're going to get to part 2. Part 1, we're at substance right now. We're talking about the substance of your process and presentation. Now we're going to talk about skill next, which I would argue is way more important than substance. So Charlie, I think we're, as usual, on the same page.
Yes, good.
So wonderful. Take advantage of whatever your brokerage has or what we have to share with you. You can Google it, all right? You can simply Google it and find great examples. Again, probably don't want to go down the rabbit hole, and this comes down to estimates of time. How valuable is it to you to improve it? How much in need of improvement is it? How much time do you have? How much time could you carve out? And Charlie, I will tell you, this is something that we could all claim we don't have time for, and then we spend our time on other things. And I think growing your skill as a presenter is one of the most essential skills that you could grow for your business. So committing the time to becoming better is probably one of the best things that you'll do. I say to my coaching clients, for a 90-day sprint, you know, like,
yes, right.
Here we are in the 3rd quarter, choose a focus. If this is your focus, you've got to focus. You can't just do a little bit of this and then forget about it or have it drag out all year. I think you were afraid. So sprint to the end of the quarter to become skilled at listings. So Google the question, go to YouTube. There are so many great agents sharing their best practices and sharing their ideas. Lots of things you can find there. And then make yours from scratch. And Charlie, I'm so gratified that you shared the way you did it, because that's similar to what I was going to suggest. I started mine by just writing down everything I thought mine should have. I would just have something occur to me, like, oh, I need a page on appraisal. I need a page on, and this is more for the pre-listing communication, depending on how you do yours. So I just kept emailing them to my assistant, and I realized not everyone has an assistant, and we'll get to that. Every time I would think of another one, I would just say, I need one on this, I need one on this, and they built it for me. But what I would do now, and I no longer have that assistant, I would bullet out all the things that I wanted to have, and then turn it over to somebody on Fiverr or Upwork. And here's how you get the work that you want, by the way. Find something you like. Find something you think is attractive. I don't care if it's somebody else's listing flyer, or I saw a woman, she's in Canada somewhere. I saw her at the Curator Conference, and she talked about how she had designed the entire look of her marketing from fashion magazines. She liked the way they looked. She said, ripped out some pages, gave them to her designer, and said, make me look like this. This is the general feel. The other tip for finding good work on something like Fiverr is to find 3 people who are really highly rated, have good testimonials for their work. check all the boxes and then give them all the job. And in the case of an entire presentation, you probably want to give them something smaller.
Yeah.
But this is a hack that I heard in a different place, that you ask 3 of them to do the job and then pick the one that does it the way you want, because this is probably a relationship that you want to have going forward.
Yeah, ideally, right?
Done right. Yeah. So you can just write it down. You can take, Charlie, your idea, print out someone else's, write on it with a marker, right? Don't let anything hold you back. Don't overthink it. You can just write in the margins. Yeah, you can really get this together in not that much time.
Right.
And you really need to set time limits and really sprint to getting it done.
Yep. Progress, not perfection. You can always change it up, and you will change it up. Your stats are going to change. Your company may change, right? So again, this is not set in stone. And I don't want people to think that. I think realtors fall into this trap, Amy, of getting something like 95% of the way done, and then they see the next shiny penny and they go after that, and they have all these kind of unfinished projects.
Yeah.
And, great salespeople are usually a little bit messy.
Sure.
And, so they fall into that trap. So 90% in this case, I would say, is done. And just run with it, especially if you're not running with anything right now, like I said a few minutes ago.
Well, and the truth of the matter is there is no such thing as 100% done. So quit pursuing that.
Right.
Who would know if it was?
Exactly. Yep.
But the substance of your presentation is going to be more your skill in presenting some things that are real time. So this document, Charlie, that you and I are talking about, for most of us is probably mostly pre-listing communication.
Yes, right.
Not necessarily going to hold the consumer's hand through every single page of, this is what I've done in the past, or this is why my brokerage is great.
Right.
You might, especially with regard to marketing samples, you may choose to do that. But your social proof, all this in this piece can be sent in advance. So I think part 1, what will be the substance of your presentation and how can you make that better?
Yep.
But 2, how can you improve your skill? Okay, I want to back up. Charlie, it occurs to me, I'm going to ask those listening who want to improve, who want to dominate, who want to be really strong listing agents, to take advantage of their dearest friends and colleagues who are willing to role play and practice with them. And part of that could be asking people, what was a listing experience you had that you wished it had been better? What was missing? And you might just ask them, right? Because as you're looking to the substance of your presentation and wondering what should have been explained right up front, you might ask other people, even ask other agents, what do you think would be better? What do you wish was better about yours, right?
Yep.
They'll probably be candid. So that might really help you with substance. But on to skill. So I think this is the most important part. I think the skill is the most important part. I think we all know some super experienced agents who don't really rely too heavily on a written presentation.
Yep.
Because they're so skilled at their interview and so skilled at presenting the value. They know the market like the back of their hand. They know the comps. So skill requires becoming really, really good at assessing people's needs and wants, right? Not being so nervous that you make it about you, that you make it about them, right? So that you're good at it, that you know what to ask, and you're not desperately clinging to your questionnaire because you're going to forget something essential. Practice, practice, practice. It is worthy. It is worth your time to become fluid. Charlie, I think you and I both saw a presentation of a handful of agents who work in the high-end luxury. I think 100+ mil is high.
Yeah.
And the one talked about how he spends countless hours preparing for his presentations and oftentimes throws them out and doesn't use them because of the circumstances that he finds. Once he gets there, he has to adapt to the need of the homeowner, the property owner, and make sure it goes their way. He says these are very powerful, very headstrong people who have to have things on their terms. But he says, by the time I go in there, the stuff is memorized. So I know that's, somebody else might say, well, I would too if it was $100 million, but the truth is you only earn the right to go to presentations like that when you have that level of commitment. So I just want to encourage you, focus and memorization it's worth it for the amount that we get paid.
Well, yeah, and knowing, like you said a minute ago, knowing the market frontwards, backwards, knowing what the FSBO is going on because you saw it on Zillow or Redfin or whatever site you have an alert set up on, right? It's not just the stuff that's in the MLS. And when they say, yeah, Susie down the street, 2 doors down, she sold her house, what happened there? And the answer. It's not, check. And that is something that if you watch, a lot of these reality shows are somewhat scripted, I think, right? But first of all, the agents are confident and they know what they're talking about. They know the market, whether they're arrogant or not, or kind of Hollywood-like or not, they all really know the market. And I think if we all look at the top listing agents in our markets, they all really know the market. You're not going to trip them up on the market, and you're not going to trip them up on objections because they've practiced.
Yeah.
They've practiced with peers. They've practiced over time. And I think, you had mentioned earlier, role play, and I'm always urging my coaching clients to participate in role play because I would rather you make a mistake in front of a peer than somebody who wants to pay you money.
Sure.
And we get better. I've got some clients that have 4 role play partners, 4 days a week, 4 different people inside certain ecosystems, outside of those ecosystems, right?
Yeah.
If your role play partner is your spouse, that's not a great role play partner. Is it something, is it better than nothing? Sure. Right. But try to find somebody who doesn't know you that well, right? They can really take the angle of the client.
Sure.
If your best friend is your role play partner, are they going to be as critical as you want them to be?
This is so funny because, Charlie, I think a lot of us are afraid of role play because we're just super intimidated.
It's a dirty word. Role play and accountability. Those are the 2 dirty words in real estate. Go ahead.
So what I want to say is choose the one who will be gentlest on you, who will let you start. If that's your cat, fine by me. I mean, I appreciate, Charlie, what you're saying about having a true peer, having somebody with more objectivity give you better feedback. But I think most of us don't start because we're so afraid. And I'm sure
somebody who's gonna let you win and then work your way up a little bit. Right. Yes. I agree.
You can start with yourself. Record yourself.
Absolutely.
And then just watch it and go, oh, that's how. No. And I've shared the story of how the first time I ever practiced a presentation in front of someone, it was my 18-year-old son, and I was shaking. So be easy on yourself. Find someone who will let you practice, even if it's your own mirror. I think practice is essential. So I have 2 anecdotes around this topic, and I had even been prepared to share them. So I love it that we are so much on the same page.
Good.
Years and years and years ago, I joined a church community, and they love to talk about their history as a church, whatever. Someone felt the need to tell me that the minister that they had, who was lovely, he played the guitar, he had experience in a lot of different other lines of work prior to this. He was an interesting guy. They shared that they had paid as a congregation to get him acting lessons. I was like, really? And they said, well, yeah, I mean, he's a sweet guy and all. He's super, super smart. He can sing, he can play the guitar. Yeah. He's an experienced social worker. He has a degree in engineering. Like, he's a great guy. His skill at the pulpit was lacking. His polish was not there.
Right.
And they just said, no, we want this better. We want to come and feel like he has handled this for us, and that he's packaged it up well, and he's ready to deliver solid, motivational, inspirational message. So they got him acting lessons. And I have always remembered that. Let's take our own job seriously. And to some degree, it's a performance. So Charlie, when you said those agents on those shows, sure, it's scripted. Yeah, most agents, whether they're on a show or not,
right,
to some degree, it's a performance. And I'm not trying to say it's phony. I'm just saying they are polished, and they are prepared, and they have an intended message to deliver. So that's my one anecdote about practice. And the other is about my friend Elizabeth that I love to talk about. I was her trainer, and at the end of her first year, she came to me and said, I think I hate listings. And I said, oh, really? And she had a very successful buyer year. She had a strong first year in the business. She said, I think I hate listings. And I knew why. She had made a pretty simple mistake, and she had botched a listing pretty badly early in her career. And she knew it was her mistake, and she owns it. Yeah. It's one of her proudest moments that she learned early. But I said, well, let's talk about this. Why do you think you hate listings? And it was kind of the PTSD from messing up so badly. And I said, well, do you remember how you felt about buyers when you first came to us? And she was like, well, no, I didn't have any buyers, right? And I said, well, you've worked really hard to become really skilled at buyers. You now have your buyer presentation in hand. You have one of the best checklists I've ever seen. You are so practiced and you are so devoted. What if you would just treat yourself like a newbie and start over and grow that same skill for listing? She skipped off happy as a clam. She came back the next week and she said, I now read my listing presentation out loud to myself once a day to tell the universe that I'm ready. And so if you're asking, how long do I need to practice, Amy? I would say until you don't need to practice anymore.
Right.
Do it once a day until it's like it's getting boring. You're so good at it.
So improving skill, we've got role play, we've got practice, we've got knowing the market. We're running a little bit over. What else can fall into this category of improving your skills?
So I think that what you need to look at is, what do you have now? You're going to have to do a little bit of an assessment, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you have and what's missing? Because we've talked about, you need to be able to show them these things, but you need to be able to say it in a really strong way, right? So go through our massive, very thorough listing process checklist, and you can go, got it, need it, got it, need it. You know, you can do it with a pen, right? Figure that out, and then start, chunking it down, make it doable one piece at a time to get better. And I would say commit the amount of time. Well, this is a tough one, Charlie, because, when you're under the gun with taxes, you just find the time, right?
Sure.
I'll tell you, I don't have time to do my taxes until I'm about to go to jail.
Right.
And suddenly I do.
Suddenly it gets done.
Yeah. So if this is important, if growing your skill at listing is important to you, find the time, sacrifice your Netflix time, do whatever it takes, get up a little bit earlier, practice review. I would say no less than 2 hours a week, but you figure out how it works for your brain, half an hour a day, whatever it takes to really, really focus on this. But I would say give yourself the deadline, sprint to the end of the quarter, take our massive to-do list. And by the way, our to-do list is all the little things like call and schedule this and send them that. And it's everything.
Yes.
You can make it work for you. But I would say committing to practice, identify your holes, right? And interviewing your friends is going to help. Talking to your fellow agents about what's the biggest hole in your presentation skill. Interesting. You go, oh God, that's so me too. Good point. Yeah, I would just do some triage and then start filling in the pieces, and know that you can. Know that this is worth it. Charlie, I know I'm worried that you think I'm encouraging them to overthink it and make this a long thing, but I just think it's worth it, and I think we are too willing to wing it and be disappointed with our outcome.
Well, yeah, I mean, we talked last on Friday about there are people that are calling us saying, I would like to hire you for a part-time job. It's going to last about 90 days and pay you $20,000. And for some reason, people think that it's appropriate to wing that. And it's not. And we're leaving money on the table when we do wing it. And I realize that there's people watching this that think, oh, I get a lot of come list me calls. I don't need to be as prepared. And we've argued this before. You do need to be prepared. We want to give everybody that level 10 service.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, and if you choose not to, what happens when you get the call that says, I'd like to interview 1 and 2 other agents about listing the home? Do you show up, or you just throw in the towel because you're not going to be prepared? So I know we're running a little bit over on time, so we're going to leave it there. On Wednesday's show, I'm going to be interviewing former Virginia Association of Realtors Chief Counsel Lem Marshall. He's going to be discussing all of the new real estate laws that came into effect a couple weeks ago. So I will see you back here Friday morning, Amy. Have a good week. Always good to see you. And back over to Eyerusalem.
Thank you so much for watching. And as always, we're here to make your career better.
Take care, everybody.